Ah, that's better, isn't it? Okay, isn't that much easier to deal with? Yeah, it's like, finally, Kat, you're getting the angles right. Okay, okay, so here we go. Like you're doing the knit stitch, you are basically, instead of, it's like you're doing the knit stitch, but you put the needle both through both stitches the on the first side and the second side, and as if you're doing the knit stitch. Oh, if you don't know how to knit, I do not recommend like watching this. Um, of course, I will have patterns for beginners. Um, not patterns. I'm so sorry. I meant videos. So I would recommend watching those as soon as those come out. But this is basically for people who already know how to knit, so I'm not really going to go through all the details of how to do this. So basically, it's like you're doing the knit stitch and you're pulling it through both, and you take them both off the needles. Next, you do the same thing with the next, you're doing the same thing, just repeat. And you are like, it's like the basic knit stitch, except you're going through two stitches, if you get what I mean, right? Now, if you see here, I have two stitches on this needle. Now, as if you're binding off, you are going to loop this over the needle like you're binding off. Now, you repeat the steps by going here through the needle like you're doing the basic knit stitch, and wrap around, of course. Sorry. And then you take it off the needle. Same thing, and then you loop it over like you're binding off, and you repeat this again. I'll do this a few more times because I know a lot of people need repetition, and of course there's nothing wrong with that because I need it to. So you know what would be helpful is if I just do this all the way through the end so that you really know what you're doing. Basically, you're repeating these steps, and you're doing the basic knit stitch and binding off, basically, but with two needles on one side. And you're doing the same thing. And you're doing the same thing. And remember, when you're doing this, loop it through this side. I guess it depends on your style of knitting, honestly, but just do it as if you're like binding off. So I know a lot of people have different strokes for knitting, and I'm not going to say which one's right or wrong because there is no right or wrong stroke. I mean, everybody has learned different. So yeah, we're binding off, and again, we are just basically repeating the same process. Yeah, you can see what I'm doing, right? And of course, loop it over like you're binding off, and you're doing it again. Oh, by the way, when you do this, make sure, I forgot to mention this, and this is really important, so please listen up. You always want to make sure your stitches are exactly the same number on both sides. If you miss a number, if you miss one, if you have if the numbers are not even, like if there's one less stitch or one more stitch on one needle than the other, you did something wrong. And basically, okay, here's an example of how that can go wrong. I'll just make, like, hypothetically, let's say that I mess up and I do this, but I did not, and then I bind off, right? And then I realize, oh, and then later on, let's say I just keep going, but then I realize, wait, and I count my stitches, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. What happened? Okay, Kat, you really messed up. So that's not an issue. All you really have to do is undo that, like go back as much as you can. Okay, well, let's say I already did go a little too far, like hypothetically. Of course, this is not a real project, so it's like not really a big deal for me if I fuck this up. excuse my French, I'm so sorry. You did not have to hear that. And then you, okay, so let's say now I have one less stitch on one side. Easy. All you have to do is go back, take it out as far back as you have to go until, and then what you have to do is carefully place these stitches onto the needle. So make sure that they're on the right side, make sure your work's on the right side, of, like, yeah, you know what I mean. And now here's where, and then you just, now you count your stitches again. Keep counting them until you find that, until you find the even, let's keep doing it until you find the number that's exact on both sides. I'm not sure if I'm explaining that well, but I'm doing my best. This is really like my first video I've ever posted in my lifetime, so please bear with me if it's like, Kat, what are you talking about? Okay, now let's look again. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Oh, perfect. Now we're back to where we've left off. Now let's start again. Now you want to make sure that you do both. So you do this. Of course, you're doing like you're binding off, but with 2 needles, and you're going through you're basically going through 2 stitches at once. And we're going to just do this all the way until the end, right? Like I said, if you have no idea how to bind off, basically, I would just go to, in the meantime, if you want more of my videos, they'll be coming up shortly. Other than that, there's a lot of other great YouTubers on here that show you how to bind off. Of course, I will have a video myself before I, well, after this one. So you want to just keep doing this and just kind of like make sure. I'm a very fast knitter, by the way, so bear with me. I'll try to slow down as much as possible. I think those of you who already follow me on Instagram, I think you've all seen my videos that I knit like a crazy speed demon, so they say, at least. I mean, honestly, I don't think so. I guess it's because I look at the continental style of knitting, and they basically go the same speed as me, but there's much less motion with that, which is why it doesn't look as fast. But I literally do not knit that fast. Maybe for American style I do, but definitely not for continental. Oh, by the way, I do not know how to do continental stitching, or knitting, if you know what I mean. So if you want to learn continental style, I would not recommend watching my videos because I do not know anything. I know a little bit of continental, like, okay, I knit continental when I knit with 2 colors, but that's like, that's as good as it gets for Kat. Okay, so we keep going. Yeah, this is just basically almost there. Almost. Okay. Yeah, I think you all get the point now, so here we are. And okay. I will definitely, like I said, just be patient with me. I am a college student, and if I haven't mentioned that before, so it's a little time consuming for me to like make these videos, so I won't be posting them as much as I'd like to at the moment, just because I am taking classes, I'm making stuff and writing patterns. So doing these videos is also a lot for me. I just basically added doing videos to my list because honestly I like doing that, because it's like, okay, before I chit chat away, now that we've got to the end, you basically take these off. Like, these are done, right? You saw that, right? Now, you just bind off like you always do. And then, oh, I forgot to mention, you need to have scissors. Here we go. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm going to cut this, I'm gonna leave a little bit of a tail, because you want to weave in your ends after you're done. You don't just want to like cut it off. Of course, that's like very obvious to people who knit, but then at the same time, there's some knitters who do not understand that, and trust me, I have been one of those knitters. Like, I literally did not weave in my work until I was like, what, 21, and I've been knitting since 5th grade, so yeah. But, you know, practice makes perfect. I mean, no, I'm sorry. I'll rephrase that. Practice makes permanent. There is no such thing as perfect. Perfect is overrated. Okay, so, yeah, like you saw what I did there. I just kind of